welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler. I am an author, two-time short filmmaker, occasional photographer, painter, doer of things, and the head ghoul of Spooky Chris. Hopefully you found my podcast through the website, because that means you can track down all of my 30-some podcasts and check out all of my blogs and my books. I've released, around 20 books, varying from horror fiction to fantasy to kids' books. So I've hit the gamut. So this time I thought I would talk about, and it's funny, this is take 4, I think, because I keep starting and stopping because the dog's barking, and I try to do this in my car, and it was like, rah, 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 so it wasn't working out for me. But I wanted to talk about kind of our expectations we have for ourselves. Now that it's 2020, we're just past the New Year's celebrations and just past the winter holidays. And it's still, this time of year is a hard time for a lot of people. And I think, it's one of those where we talk about it but don't really kind of listen about it. For me, I grew up in a family that my parents didn't have great childhoods and didn't have great, holidays and stuff. So they did everything they could to spoil my sister and I and make sure that we did have those great holidays, and we did. Once we get to October, I'm pretty stoked for the last 3 months of the year. I enjoy the warmer months just because I like driving around with the windows down, blaring obnoxious music. And winter just kind of wears me down anymore as I've gotten older. But I love the holidays. Once you get to October, you get into Halloween, and then it's November and Thanksgiving, and then it's all full tilt towards Christmas. I've never cared about New Year's, but I love Christmas. It truly speaks to the inner child in me, and I do get a post-Christmas depression. And it's, for me, it's the music, the lights, the presents, the family, the food, the friends. I love the whole atmosphere of it. Especially going into winter, it's hard because, you're right into, once Christmas is over, you pull everything down, and then it's darkness again for several months. Now, for a lot of people that love winter sports, this is a great time of year. You can ski, you can ice skate, you can snowboard, you can go ice fishing. There's a ton of stuff to do. Me, I never really loved the winter. I did stuff more when I was a kid, sledding and all that. But I've never been as big a fan of the winter as I was every other, season. So it's just not a fun time of year for me anyways. But then it's so dark, and I miss the lights. It's a big part of it. It's a shame we don't light up things more and kind of have more fun with that. Not out of safety concerns, but just to have fun. It's a shame that goes to why all houses have to be brown and white. It's a shame we don't let each other and let ourselves enjoy things more and enjoy life more. Life would be a lot more fun if it was more colorful, that's for sure. But I get, speaking personally, and again, I get the love for the holidays, and I told you, where I come from, but I also get the sadness, because if you've lost someone, in death or breakup, if you've lost a job, if you have a lot going on in your life, it's a hard time of year, because everyone expects you to be okay and happy, and, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What did you get your so-and-so? If you're broke, and you don't have money for your family, your kids, that's a ton of stress. If you have to ask for help, that's a ton of stress. If you've lost someone, by death or breakup or just distance, that's a heck of a thing to go through, because, someone that filled a huge part of your life is gone. and everyone's asking about them or about something, and you're just asking yourself, well, what's wrong with me that they're gone? It's lonely, and it's hard. Lonely people can't very easily reach out to one another because you're it's a drowning person trying to save a drowning person. And so many people get caught up in their own stuff, in their own kind of world, that's the focus. So it's hard to see everybody else. Or, you scroll past it on social media, or you give platitudes of, oh man, you'll be okay, or it'll look okay, it's going to be fine, you'll find a job, you'll find somebody, you'll find this, things will be great, just look on the good side. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes it doesn't feel like there is a good side. And that's hard. And especially when you throw in New Year's. New Year's, I've always hated New Year's. Well, I have since I've been an adult. I was left at a bar once by somebody I'd been seeing, so that kind of solidified it. And it's just never been a favorite time of mine. Not for a long time. I mean, I'm not a big party person, so it just doesn't, mean much to me, and I don't get a bee in my bonnet about making, big plans or anything for the next year. But it's one of those things where the year ending, it forces you to kind of take an assessment, like the good, bad, and ugly of how your year went. And if you had, a year that was full of some trauma, that weight only feels heavier. Last year was hard for me, or 2018. I lost my mom. I lost my job. We just had a lot going on, and it was a hard winter and shucks. Being unemployed for the winter, the good was that I didn't have to drive in any of it, which was great. But I was out of work for 8 months after being fired. That's hard. And it's hard to kind of focus on the positive and on the future when you're just kind of trying to make ends meet and trying to figure out hope. It was interesting, last night I went to get takeout for my wife and I, and went to a place that I remember distinctly I'd gone with a couple of friends not long after the steakhouse after they'd opened in the area, and I just lost my job. I was leaving a place, and they were closing. Basically, I was going on vacation. They were going to close while I was on vacation, so I lost the job. And I just didn't know what I was going to do. I was working, this would have been 2000 and, I'm trying to think, 3, 4, something like that. But I had no idea. I had no clue. I was living on my own. I had no money in the bank. Heck, I still don't. And I had no idea, how I was going to survive. And I remember thinking that at the place as we were waiting, and I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. 15 years later, it turned out okay. But it's hard, at the time, it's hard to see that. And that's the thing, is when you're in pain, you can't see farther. Because anything could be ahead of you. It could, if you could win the lottery, you could be successful, you could be happy, you could meet the person of your dreams, or you could get hit by a car. You don't know. That's the fun of the future. And you just don't know. So it's hard to look on the future and see something there. And, we need bridges. We need these bridges to build to get us there. These little pieces of hope that let us go, okay, I have these skills, I know these people, I have these talents, I can do this. So, you trust in that and you can move forward, but it's hard. And the holidays, again, you're compounding all the stress about material things and familial and love things, and then you're putting that right on top of another holiday that kind of forces you to go like, okay, you need to lose weight, you need to do better, you need to do this and that, or you're not living fully. And we live so much by other people's laws and rules. We let imaginary people on social media dictate our happiness. Social media is generally best face forward. So we don't see people's disillusionment, their pain, their sorrow, their self-doubt. The people that you do see that's generally all you will see is this like a blinding self-hatred and sense of just like disaster. But everyone feels this need. All of us feel this need to be pretty and be attractive and be cool and seem as if we are living these lives that are enviable, when we're just living our lives. I mean, not everyone wants a giant TV. Not everyone wants to go on exotic vacations. Not everyone wants to go in the woods. Not everyone wants to go to concerts. Not everyone wants a relationship. Not everyone wants kids. Whatever path you chose for yourself, if you got to choose it, that's all that matters. We get caught up in what other people think, with families like, oh, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to settle down? When are you going to do this? When are you going to get a better job? When we need to make those decisions. We need to do what's best for us. We need to follow our passions and our skills and our loves and see where that takes us. Sometimes it takes us to dead ends, but, that's part of life too, is learning and moving on and learning that it's okay to mess things up once in a while, as long as you are strong enough to own the mess up and move on, and figure it out. It's a shame we get caught up in all of this, this web that other people weave, and it's only gotten worse because it's gone from posts that are you to pictures to now it's just like pictures and short videos and to memes. So memes, it's not even you speaking anymore. You're using other people's words and images to say something that isn't quite what you mean or feel. With the images, you're cutting out a piece of a moment to portray something. With the videos, again, you're selectively editing a moment, or you're putting on a show, you're acting. So it's not genuine. At least in our words, there's some genuineness because they're ours. And it's hard to see through the fog of it all. And as the year turns, it's hard to push forward. But that's sometimes all you can do is push forward, because there's always forward. There's not much life behind us. There's not much to do with the future back there. You can only move forward a step at a time, and trust yourself and keep moving forward until you kind of figure things out. And you've got to let yourself figure things out. It'll take a minute sometimes. But if you're able to surround yourself with people that support you and that kind of echo your passions and your loves and, amplify what they see in you, the good they see in you, that's going to help. That gives you kind of like it keeps the fire alive so you can move forward. And so you can keep kind of heading through the darkness until it clears. And it'll clear. It always does. There's good times, bad times, as they always say. It's just right now, it can seem like the darkness is even thicker. And you just kind of got to get through it. If your holidays aren't your thing, you just kind of got to move forward and find your joy and find your fun. Embrace the things that matter to you and just kind of ignore the hoo-ha of what other people do for their holidays. And if you love the holidays, love them. Whether it's religious or irreligious, love them. Love the things you love. There's too few things that we find joy in, and if it doesn't hurt anyone, there's no reason not to find joy in it. Weird as other people may think it is. And it helps if you're into the arts in any way, as a participant or as a viewer of the arts, as an appreciator, because you can throw yourself into the arts. The arts can speak for us. There's a million movies about sadness or joy. There's 1,000 songs. I should say 1,000 movies, a million songs. There's way more songs about the same for both. Gosh, there's more songs about heartbreak than you can imagine, and then there's twice as many about love. So you can kind of just zone out and just get through them, get through the holidays. When you're at your lowest, it really is a matter of pushing through it, and just pushing through until things change, because they always change, like inevitably. You just got to get through it and not give up on yourself, because in the end, you're the only one that's pulling for you. Like, everybody else can be supportive and they can be great, but you're the one pulling for you. And there's too much cool stuff to check out early and to give up on. And there's too many stories for us to write to let other people write ours. So I know things get hard and things can get pretty dark, but we're our own lights. And we don't see it because we are it. And as we head forward in that darkness, others will look and see us and join us, because they're drawn to our light and we can be drawn to theirs, and together we make a brilliant blaze that cuts through all of the darkness and creates a path forward. You can do it alone, but it's not as much fun as doing it with other people. So you take care of yourselves out there. I'll be back sooner than later. I wanted to blab about the Star Wars movies, because I've just seen the last one recently, and having grown up with them, I wanted to talk about them. But I'll hit that next episode. For now, you take care. Check out spookychris.com for all my books and stories and all that stuff. And I will talk to you soon, my friend. Goodbye.